Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about cleaning up a Affinity Designer file for import into Lightburn to ensure that what you see in Affinity is what you're going to get in Lightburn. There's a lot of nuance to Lightburn versus Infinity, where Affinity can have layers filled with white that really mean nothing to Lightburn, and there's just other things where if layers are overlapping, you're going to get the content of both layers from Lightburn. So my friend had sent me a plaque that he wanted to do, an edgelit display, and I've modified it a little bit to get rid of the identifying stuff from that file. So I'm going to go ahead and open that file, and we're looking at this major award. And as you can see here, there are several layers. There's some extra stuff down here, literally, and what he's looking for is he wants a red cutout of the shape with a light engrave on the gray and a dark engrave, or like a deep engrave, on the black to make a nice edgelit sign with two different tones of reflection. So we're going to look at the file that he created and how we can convert this into something that will import into Lightburn and give you what you're expecting. One of the first things to note is with Lightburn, there's all these layers down at the bottom, and obviously to get different settings in Lightburn, each layer can have its own settings. Lightburn will support up to 32 layers, and if you have a hex code of color in Affinity that matches one of the hex codes of these layers, when you export from Affinity, that color will import directly into the proper layer in Lightburn. To address that, I will have a link in the video below. I've actually created a palette for Affinity that will exactly match the colors in Lightburn, so it makes it really easy. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to import that palette and show you how that works. So I want to make sure that my swatches window is open right here, which mine is over here. And in the swatches, I'm going to click on the little hamburger menu and say import palette, and I want to do it as an application palette so it's available to all Affinity products going forward. I don't want it to be a document palette, which would only work for the file that I have open. It's up to you which way you want to do that. So I'm going to import the palette file. Give me 1 second. It's this Lightburn layers one. And now you'll see I have a palette here that each one is named what layer it's going to end up in Lightburn, including the T1 and T2 layers. I will note that if you have a color in your export, when you pull it into Lightburn, if you have a color that doesn't exactly match a layer color, Lightburn's going to put it into the closest match. Also, these tool layers used to import directly into Lightburn. They no longer do. I've actually requested that feature be re-added because it is convenient. But right now, if you use one of these two layers, it's going to import as something else. Just fair warning on that. So at the moment, we're more worried about cleaning this file up than we are about actually the colors, so we'll get to that in a minute. First thing with the file is I noticed there's some extra stuff at the bottom. We don't need that, so I'm just going to turn that off. That was in one group, and I'm going to put it down at the bottom so it's out of the way. I'm going to look at this curve and make sure this is what I think it is. Okay, yeah, that's the outer cut, so I'm just going to set that to 1 point. The width of this doesn't matter. It just has to be big enough you can see it on the screen so you know what you're working with. When this goes into Lightburn, width doesn't matter for cuts, it's just going to be a line. So I'm going to rename this. That's another thing. Naming layers really can help keep track of things, especially on complex projects. So I'm going to name this one outer cut. And I'm just going to note that it's red. Not that that's really important, but that's what I'm going to note. And I do want to make sure that it is the right red to be layer 2. Yeah, layer 2 in Lightburn. So on that, I'm going to click on the stroke, and I'm going to see, okay, I have the Lightburn layers palette selected here. And yeah, that's layer 2, so I'm going to hit that. Now we know this red is exactly what's going to import into Lightburn. Now we want to look at cleaning up the file. And whenever I look at this, I notice there's a ton of shapes in here. And it looks like almost all of these are just centers for zeros with a few exceptions. So I have a feeling there's extra stuff in here, so I'm going to take the not zero centers and put them, mainly trying to get it so I can select all the zero centers at once easily. Looking at this right now, the whites we need to really make clear. So everywhere that's white here really should look like the background checker pattern, because Affinity, while it looks great on the screen here, like exactly what we want, when we export this and import it into Lightburn, the white's not going to mean anything, and Lightburn's going to stack all these other shapes on top of each other, and they're going to really cause problems for our project. So if I select the... Oh, let me do one other thing first. I forgot to mention this. The first thing I really like to do is... I'm going to be messing around with this a lot, and it's going to get to the point of no return where we're going to mess stuff up. Well, not mess it up. We're going to change stuff enough that we won't be able to get back to the original. So I'm going to copy this whole group and create a copy of it. I'm going to rename one of these to content backup. You can name it original, whatever you want to call it. Oh, this is the extra stuff. So I'm going to name that just so I know what it is. I'm going to turn off the backup. This one I'm going to rename content Lightburn. So I know this is going to be a simplified, merged version of the content. So I can always go back to the main content layer, which again is disabled right now. I can always get back to there to do modifications in the future if I need to. If I want to change the font on major, for example. So right now I'm trying to verify if I need all these dots or not. So looking at that list, or at that group of them, yeah, they're all centers. So I'm going to group that by hitting Control G, and then I just want to turn that group off and see what happens. Okay, well we can see all that's happening with that group is the centers of the O's are changing. So yeah, and they're white. Again, white doesn't really mean anything, so I'm going to delete that whole group. We don't need it. Okay, so now these two layers look the same, so I think they're duplicates. If I do one of them at a time, nothing's changing. If I do both of them, okay, yeah, all that's doing is removing the white, but it leaves the gray pattern we want. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything behind this major award here. So I'm going to turn off the major award group. We'll work on that separately once we get this gray stuff worked out. Okay, so yeah, this white is really just behind the gray. It's not really doing anything. I'm going to delete both of these layers. We don't need them. All we need is the red, the gray, and the black. Those three shapes, and we want to get to the point where red is one shape, gray is one shape, and black is another shape. Now, where's the black at? We have, what's this? Okay, so this is gray. Okay, this is gray and black, which is kind of weird. So I'm going to expand this. What's this? Okay, so this is the black that we have so far. All right, well, I want to pop that out. I don't want that as part of the gray curves. Now, these two shapes are both gray, and we want to turn these into one shape. So I'm going to highlight both of them and hit the Boolean Add, which is this little plus up here. Nothing changed on the screen, but now we only have one layer that's all the gray. Now let me look at the black, and we see, oh, well, the black goes over top of the gray. So in Lightburn, what would happen there is you get one engrave in this area around the outside. You get one engrave for the gray layer, and you would also get a deeper engrave for the black layer. We do not want that. We only want one pass on each part of the product. So I'm going to copy this. Well, let me make a note of what this is. So this is the outer black shield shape. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to subtract it from the gray. In this case, we're going to do a Boolean subtraction, and in Affinity, whatever layer is on top will be subtracted from the layer underneath. So if we take this outer black layer, and you see it overlaps this gray band on the outside. So if we take that, we highlight one copy of it and the gray part, we're going to do the Boolean subtract. And again, it looks like nothing changed, which is good. We didn't want it to look like a change. But now if I turn off the black shield, you'll see the gray no longer has that band around the outside. So the black is now going to get one setting. The gray will get its own setting. So that's great. This is what we want so far. Essentially, the gray layer is done other than figuring out what layer we want to import it into in Lightburn, because none of these colors over here match this gray. The black does match layer 1, but we'll verify, or layer 0 I should say, but we'll verify that later on. So now we have to work on the major award. And here, essentially what we want to do is subtract all the white from the gray, leaving the black inside of here as is. So let's see what we're going to do with that. Okay, first, it looks like they're grouped into award, major, and smiley face. Let's take care of the smiley face first, and we'll look at that. All right, well, we have the black pieces here. We want to keep those. So I'm going to add these together just to make it easier to deal with. So again, I'm going to highlight them and hit that Boolean Add. And we know we want to keep those, so I'm going to pop this back up to the top as well, so it's on the same level in the file as the outer shield, because we're going to turn these all into one shape later. So what are we left with in... So if I want to turn those off to see what we're left with. Oh, okay, well here we have the white, but it has the black removed from it. So we're going to have that same problem. If we just delete this white as is from the gray, it's going to leave all these gray areas here. We turn the black back on, and again, you're going to get black and gray settings in the same place. We don't want that. We really only want this outer line. So how we can handle that is I'm going to, with the white layer selected, I'm going to go to Layer, Geometry, Separate Curves. And now you see it broke it into all the pieces of the face, including that big outer curve, which is just this one here. Usually the bottom one ends up being the bigger outer curve. So these ones, I don't need any of them anymore. I'm just going to delete those. Then I'm going to take this outer curve that we want to delete from the gray and put it up on the top layer, or up on the top level, I should say. Put this shape on the same level as the gray shape for the shield. I'm going to highlight both of those, and I'm going to do that Boolean subtraction to remove the white from the gray. There, perfect. Now if I turn that face back on, we have a clear background with the smiley face in it, in black. So that's great. That's exactly what we want. So now we're going to move on to, we'll do major first. Oh, okay, so that also left us with an empty group here. I'm going to get rid of that so it's not in the way anymore. I'm going to note what these are just for clarity. Again, this is just to make working easier and identifying things easier. Okay, so now we have to, again, with major, we only want to subtract this white outline from the background, not anything else. So I have a feeling this is going to be the same way. If we turn off the major, yeah, we see major is subtracted from the white already. Well, the major is good. We want to keep it. So we'll say this is major and pop it up to the same level as the smiley face. And that leaves us with the major shape of white, which we want to keep. Okay, we'll turn off the black for now. And again, with the white one selected, we're going to go to Layer, Geometry, Separate Curves. And again, the bottom shape should end up being the one we want. Yes, it is. So we're going to remove all these other ones. We don't need them. Pop this shape up to the same level as the gray. Highlight both of them and do that Boolean subtraction again. Perfect. Okay, so now if we turn on major, it's sitting inside of a knockout that leaves the clear background. Exactly what we want. Perfect. Okay, so now we just got to do the same thing with the white behind the award. And then we got to do a little cleanup if there's any goofy specks that are left that were missed. So I'm going to turn off major, and we'll go to the award section. Again, I'm going to delete the major group because it's no longer useful. Okay, so award. Yes, okay, good. That's a set of curves. Pop it up. I'm going to rename it to award, just so I know what it is. Then with the white curves here, turn off the black, make sure the white's what we want. Yes, it is. Layer, Geometry, Separate Curves. And again, the bottom one should be the outermost. It is, exactly as expected. Delete everything else. We don't need that. Pop this shape up to the level of the gray. Hit the wrong button. And then we're going to again select the white and the gray and do a Boolean subtract. So now the gray is everything with a knockout. If I turn on all the black again, we're much closer to what we want. We now have 4 shapes that are black. If these happen to overlap and you import them into Lightburn, you're again not going to get the same results that you expect, because anywhere that they overlap is going to be negated. So if you have a black over a black, you're going to get clear where that is. So we want to add these together just to make sure they are one shape. If they're overlapping, that's welded together now, and it won't matter in Lightburn. So I'm just going to do that Boolean Add here. And we're going to rename this now to Black, Deep, Engraved. And we're going to name the gray, we're just going to call this light engrave, because we're not sure what color we want it to be yet. We'll do that in a minute. Now you can see this entire section of groups is empty, so I'm just going to delete that. Now the last thing we want to do is see if there's any little bits left in this gray that we want to clean up. I can already see right in here there are, and like there's a weird one here. So on the gray layer, or gray shape I should say, I'm going to go to the node tool, and if we look at this, like here's a tiny little thing that's it's going to look weird, so I'm going to delete those nodes. So you just highlight them and hit delete, select these ones and hit delete. These little bits of garbage here I don't think are worth keeping. And really you mainly want to look around. So this one actually is probably big enough. I'm going to leave it there. Those ones are big enough. You really only want to look around where you knocked out, because everything else should be fine. Okay, it looks like those are... Oh, here's a couple more here that are just going to look like flaws. So we'll delete those couple. Okay, so now turn off the node tool, take one more look. All right, I think that looks good. So we're going to save the file now. And remember, we can always go back to where we started by just, if we turn off this Lightburn content and turn on the backup, we still have everything there that we originally did. So we didn't lose anything, we just prepared this for export for Lightburn. We also make sure we have that extra stuff turned off, and the red layer is a cut. Now I do notice already, as you may have, that the red layer actually comes in, so the cut is going to go inside of the engrave. This is again the design I was given, so I'm going to leave that way. Apparently they want it that way. I personally would probably pull this out so that it matches the contour of the award, or of the outline. So now for determining what color we want. Well, the black is going to be an engrave layer, which is layer 0. That's kind of standard. Black is engrave in lasers. Blue, we don't have anything that we're just scoring as a line, so I don't want to mess with that. I don't want to make anything blue, because typically in lasers, blue is a simple score line, and red is a cut line. Well, we already have red for the cut line here. Oh, we do want to make sure that the black is solid black for Lightburn. So I'm going to still just hit it, make sure, yep, that's filled with the right black. So the next layer we have is this layer 3, which is going to import as bright green into Lightburn. Obviously in a laser, it doesn't matter what color. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to use the layer 3. So I'm going to highlight the gray engrave, turn off the stroke because we don't want or need a stroke for it, and we want to fill in with that layer 3. Okay, this is now ready to export for Lightburn. So to export for Lightburn, I have a preset. I'll show you the settings. As long as you export as an SVG from Lightburn, or from Affinity, at 96 dpi, whatever scale you have in your Affinity file will match what you get out of Lightburn. So like if I highlight this and I see this is 304 millimeters wide, in Lightburn it will be 304 millimeters wide. If you want to change your units, there's this millimeter here. You right click on this and you can change to see other units like inches or whatever. I always work in millimeters though, because that's pretty standard for lasers. Alright, so again I'm going to export with 96 dpi. I never have images in my Affinity files, so this downsample images doesn't really matter. I want to rasterize nothing. I do want to export my text as curves. They are already curves here, so that doesn't matter. And I'm just going to say export. And we're going to leave this named as like major award sign. So I'm going to hit save. That should be done. I've already saved my Affinity file, so I can close. And I'll just say yes, do save it again just to make sure. So now we're in Lightburn, and we want to use that file. So if I do File, Import, and I pick the one that we just created, you'll see it imports exactly the same. We now have the 4 layers. I'm going to take the fill layer for the light engrave and put it up at the top. The fill layer for the dark engrave, have it go second, and then have the cut. Whatever order these layers appear in Lightburn is how they're going to work on the laser. It'll do this layer first, then this layer, then this layer. As you know, the next thing is really just figuring out what settings you want. So I can change the layer settings here for a shallow engrave. I'll change the settings here for a deeper engrave. and then the settings here for the cut. I am not actually making this award myself, so I'm not actually going to do anything further with this. But as you can see, these did import directly into layer 0, layer 2, and layer 3 as expected. I got exactly what I want. There's no overlapping, no weird artifacts or anything like that. So this I can do a save as, or save this file, and we're ready to go. I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, post them below. I'll try to get to them as soon as possible. Again, the palette files for Lightburn as well as for MTN94 colors from Montana Color are available in my GitHub repo that will be linked below. Thank you very much.